When I first met Nathan's family, I could feel their eyes scanning every inch of me, not with curiosity, but with quiet judgment. His mother, Eleanor, offered me a polite smile, the kind that begins at the lips and dies before reaching the eyes. His father, Charles, nodded in approval of my manners but never of my background. And his sister, Lila, never tried to hide her smirk when she asked about what exactly it is I do for a living. At that time, I was just Isabella Ruiz, a middle-class woman who had worked her way through college and now managed a modest local branch of a national bank. I didn't look impressive. I didn't dress like money. But what I lacked in flash, I made up for in quiet confidence, the kind that doesn't need to shout. Still, in their eyes, I wasn't one of them. And maybe, deep down, I knew it too. Nathan, however, loved me fiercely. "They'll come around," he used to say, his thumb brushing over the back of my hand. "You'll see. Once they know you, they'll see what I see." I wanted to believe him. I wanted to think love could soften the walls built by pride. But it didn't take long to see that his family had built a fortress, one made of old money and fragile egos. At dinners, they'd mention country clubs I'd never heard of, exchange stories about vacations in Tuscany, and talk about investment portfolios as if they were discussing weather. Every time I tried to join in, I'd feel the conversation politely shift away, as if my voice simply didn't belong in that room. Still, I smiled, I listened, I tried, until one evening, at Eleanor's birthday dinner, the mask slipped. Lila raised her glass and said, "To family and to Nathan for choosing someone, down to earth." The table laughed, a soft ripple of amusement that stung more than words could. I glanced at Nathan, hoping he'd say something, anything, but he didn't. He looked down at his plate, and in that moment I realized I was alone in this fight for acceptance. After the guests left, I walked out to the garden, the cool night air brushing my skin. I heard footsteps behind me, Eleanor's. "You're a sweet girl, Isabella," she began. "But our world, it's complicated. I hope you understand." What she meant was simple. You'll never belong here. I smiled faintly. "I understand perfectly, Mrs. Carter." And I did. That night, I decided something quietly, deeply. I wouldn't fight for their approval anymore. I would let time show them what respect truly means. Years went by. Nathan and I built a life, one that was modest but honest. I worked hard, climbing the ranks at the bank, earning trust, responsibility, and eventually, a promotion that changed everything. By 34, I was the regional director overseeing multiple branches, including the one that held the Carter family's business, accounts. But I never flaunted it. I stayed the same woman, who once sat silently at that dinner table, until one day, a call came in that would bring everything full circle. It was Charles Carter. His voice was different, no longer sharp and commanding, but hesitant. "Isabella, dear, I was wondering if we could arrange a meeting at your office. It's regarding a business matter." For a moment, I thought I'd misheard. Charles Carter, the man who once questioned if I knew how real finance worked, was asking for my help. When they arrived, dressed in their perfectly pressed suits and pearls, I could see the tension in their faces. Something was wrong. The Carter estate, their pride and legacy, was drowning in debt. Their luxury construction project had gone over budget, and the market downturn had tightened every investor's hand. They needed a bank loan, a large one, and the final approval. It needed my signature. As Eleanor handed me the folder, her voice trembled slightly. "We'd be grateful for your discretion, Isabella." I looked at the paperwork, then at the people who had once looked through me. The silence in the room was thick, heavy with irony. Inside, part of me wanted revenge. To remind them of every word, every cold glance, every dinner where I was treated like a stranger in my own marriage. But another part, the stronger part, just wanted peace. I set the papers down and said softly, "I'll review it carefully. If it meets the bank's standards, I'll approve it." They nodded, almost relieved. But I could see something else flicker behind Eleanor's eyes, humility. For the first time, maybe, she saw me not as Nathan's wife, but as a woman of worth. That evening, as I watched them walk out of my office, I realized life has a quiet way of balancing itself. Sometimes the tables don't turn with noise or revenge, but with the steady rhythm of time. I approved the loan. Not because they deserved it, but because I wanted to be the person they never were kind in power. Still, when Eleanor thanked me a week later, her voice softer than ever, she said, "You've grown into quite a woman, Isabella. I misjudged you," I smiled. "No, Mrs. Carter," I replied gently. "You just didn't see me clearly before." And for the first time, she nodded without pride. That moment didn't need applause. It just needed silence, the kind that comes when dignity finally speaks louder than words. After that meeting, something in the air between us shifted. It wasn't sudden, but slow, like the first signs of spring after a long, bitter winter. Eleanor started calling once a month, always under the pretense of checking in about the loan, though her tone carried a hint of something softer. Lila sent a card during the holidays, with a message that was still stiff, but, for the first time, sincere. Nathan noticed it too. "It's strange," he said one evening as we sat on the couch, a cup of tea warming my hands. "They talk about you differently now." I smiled faintly. "People see you differently when they finally see themselves clearly." He looked at me with quiet pride, and though we didn't say it aloud, we both knew what he meant. I had become the steady presence his family once thought I could never be. A few months later, Eleanor invited us for dinner. I hesitated, remembering too many nights filled with polite condescension and careful smiles. But Nathan squeezed my hand and said, "Let's go. Maybe it's time." The house hadn't changed: tall ceilings, framed portraits, the faint scent of roses and old perfume. But the energy was different. Eleanor greeted me at the door herself, no longer delegating it to staff. She hugged me, a brief, uncertain hug, but real. Over dinner, the conversation flowed more easily. There was laughter, and this time not at my expense. Lila even asked about my work, genuinely curious. Charles, always the quiet one, simply listened, occasionally nodding in what I could only describe as newfound respect. Halfway through the meal, Eleanor put down her glass and said, "Isabella, I owe you an apology." The room fell silent. "For years, I thought status meant safety," she continued, her voice trembling slightly, "that people from our world were the only ones who truly understood success. But when things fell apart, the only person who showed us grace was the one we never accepted." Her words hung in the air, soft yet heavy. I didn't rush to fill the silence. I let it breathe. Then I said quietly, "Sometimes people mistake quiet strength for weakness. I'm glad you finally saw the difference." Eleanor's eyes glistened. "I did. I truly did. It wasn't vindication I felt in that moment. It was release, a gentle letting go of every small humiliation I had swallowed over the years." After dinner, as Nathan helped his father in the study, Eleanor walked with me through the garden. The same garden where years ago she'd told me I wouldn't fit in. The night was cool, the flowers swaying lightly under the moonlight. "You've built something beautiful," she said, glancing at me. "Not just your career, your peace. I envy that." I looked at her, and for the first time, I saw not a woman of arrogance, but one who had finally learned the fragility of pride. "I had to," I replied softly, "because no one builds peace for you. You build it yourself, piece by piece." She nodded, and for a brief second, I think she understood everything words couldn't say. As time went on, our relationship found a rhythm, cautious, respectful, almost tender. When their loan was finally repaid, I didn't expect anything. But a few days later, I received a small envelope in the mail. Inside was a handwritten note from Eleanor and a single gold key. "It's symbolic," the note read. "A key to the house where you were once made to feel like a guest. You belong here now not because of who you married, but because of who you are." I sat at my desk, holding the key between my fingers. The metal felt cool, solid, real. And yet, I didn't feel triumph. I felt peace. I never used the key, but I kept it. Because it wasn't about access, it was about acknowledgement. Years later, when Eleanor passed away, she left a small note with her will addressed to me. It read, "Thank you for teaching me what grace looks like. The world needs more women like you, patient, grounded, and strong enough to forgive what others never admit. I cried when I read that, not out of sadness, but out of quiet gratitude. Because sometimes the people who hurt us the most are the ones who teach us what we're truly made of. Nathan framed that letter, and it hangs in my office now not as a reminder of revenge, but of growth. People often think power is about money or control. But I learned that the greatest power is dignity, the ability to stay kind when the world expects you to be cruel, to rise without shouting, to forgive without forgetting. When I look back now, I see that moment in my office when Eleanor handed me that folder with trembling hands as the turning point of everything, not because it proved I'd won, but because it reminded me that character always finds its way to the surface, even through years of doubt. Sometimes life doesn't give us dramatic closure. Sometimes it gives us quiet mornings, unexpected apologies, and the gentle knowledge that we became everything we once hoped to be. And that's enough. So whenever someone asks how I dealt with in-laws who never believed I was enough, I tell them this: you don't have to prove your worth to anyone. Just live it. Time will do the rest. And one day, when the same people who once looked down on you come seeking your grace, you'll understand revenge isn't the sweetest victory. Peace is.